Hey, what's up YouTubers? Lee John Blackmore here at Super Easy Guitar. So this week we're doing 10 easy chords you must know. So if you're a super beginner and you've just been learning notes and little riffs and you want to get into chords, this is the lesson for you, okay? So I've picked 10 chords that I teach on a regular basis to my new students, okay? Regardless of their age. And these chords will help you learn pretty much any song you want to learn, okay? A majority of kind of pop or rock songs, kind of like popular ones anyway, start off with 3 or 4 chords, okay? So by learning 10 chords, you've got lots of options to pick from, okay? And just, don't try and do this lesson in one sitting. Just start one chord at a time, get comfortable with it, and then move on to the next one, okay? And it's very important, when you learn each chord individually, it's very important then to practice changing in between them, okay? And then start putting them into songs. So if you go on Google and just look up your favorite songs, check out the chords, and you'll be able to recognize them and learn how to put them together, okay? And this will help massively, all right? Let's zoom in and have a closer look, and we'll get into the first chord. Okay, so the first chord I've picked is E major, okay? Whenever you see just E or A written down, they always mean major, okay? And the way you have to think of it, there's two main types of chords, and that's major and minor. And major is always going to be like happy, okay? They sound happy. And then minor, they sound more kind of sad. Okay, so there's major, happy, and then minor. Now, learning chords is very much a difficult task when you're a beginner, so you must have patience and take time, all right? Number one thing is make sure your thumb is always in the right position. So your thumb is always going to sit in the middle area of the back of your neck, okay? So you never want to see it. Sometimes you see me playing chords and you see my thumb creeping over here, okay? And that's just a more advanced technique, so that'll come later on. So it's very important, make sure your thumb always sits in the center of the neck behind, okay? So these little diagrams I've got here is kind of just like the guitar. If the guitar was like that and I was playing an E chord, it would just be like that. See, I'm putting my first finger on, second finger on, and third finger on. Okay, so that's the diagrams are just there to help you guys out, okay? Now we're going to do the first chord, which is E. And when you're putting your fingers on the fretboard, so I'm going to count this, I'll show you the strings, okay? So the strings go from thinnest to thickest, and we count them that way. So the thin one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to the thickest one, okay? And the string names are E, B, G, D, A, and E. They're very important to know, and an easy way that people remember them is they do this little sentence, and it's Eddie ate dynamite good by Eddie. So the first letter of each sentence gives you the name of the string, E, A, D, G, B, E, okay? So when you're planting your fingers on the frets, on the fretboard rather, you don't want to play too far away from the fret itself. You always want to try and get as close as you can behind. And the reason being is it's much harder to get a sound if your finger's too far away from the fret. The closer you get to the fret, the nicer it will sound, okay? Sometimes all your fingers are going to be squeezed into one fret and you think, oh, well, my finger has to be there. How do I do that? Don't worry so much about that, okay? It's just a general rule. So we're going to take our first finger in the first fret and place it on the 3rd string. Second finger in the 2nd fret and place it on the 5th string. 3rd finger also in the 2nd fret, place it on the 4th string. Make sure your fingers are arched over so they're not touching any of the other strings. Use just the very tips of your fingers and make sure you press nice and firm, not too hard, and then softly strum. And make sure they all ring out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now if you're getting this kind of, don't worry, just push down a little bit harder. Make sure your posture's nice, make sure your thumb is in the correct position behind the neck, okay? And often I see people gripping like this where you can't see through here. And actually you should have a nice gap under there. Okay, not like this, not really tight, okay, not with the thumb round the wrong way, okay, not with the thumb right down here, thumb in the middle. Don't grip too hard. Make sure the fingers are arched over and strum. Okay, and it's going to be the same rule for each chord. Make sure you use your fingertips, arch the fingers over. And you just have to keep going with these things, guys, okay? So then we're going to go into A. So A is going to be first finger in the second fret on the fourth string, second finger also in the second fret on the third string, then third finger, second fret on the second string. Now we don't want to play the bottom E, the thick one, okay? So we start from the fifth string, which is the A, and then thumb behind, fingertips, nice arched fingers, and strum. So there's A. So far we've got E and then A. So next up we've got D. First finger in the second fret on the third string, second finger, second fret on the first string, and third finger, third fret on the second string. Now we don't want to play the bottom E again. You can play the A if you want, but I recommend playing from the D string. Don't worry if you hit the A, no big deal, just try and avoid that bottom E. Okay, again, make sure you're using the fingertips, make sure your fingers aren't covering the other ones. It just means you have to adjust your thumb at the back, press down firmly and strum. It's going to take a while, guys, but keep going. So next up, we're on C. Now C actually looks more complicated than it is. It's kind of like a diagonal chord. So the first finger is in the first fret on the second string, which is the B string. Second finger in the second fret on the fourth string, which is the D. And the third finger, it's going to feel like a bit of a stretch. It's going to go in the third fret on the fifth string. Now don't be worried about this. If you feel like you can't get there, it's normally because your thumb is in the wrong position, okay? So make sure it's comfortable on that neck behind, okay? Again, we're not going to play the bottom E string here. We're going to go from the A string, which is the fifth string, and make sure you've got nice posture. The fingers are round, arched over, and there's C. Okay, so we're getting more advanced. Congratulations for getting this far. So you're now in the second fret, taking our first finger, and you're going to put it on the fifth string, the A string. Then the second finger is going to go all the way up to that thick string, which is the E. And then we're going to put our third finger or our pinky, whatever you find comfortable, on the top E, which is the first string, okay, the thin string, in the third fret. So you can play it like that, or you can actually, there's a couple of different ways of doing this. So you could put your third finger on the second string, your your pinky on the first string, and the other two are the same. That's kind of what we call the sweet G, just because it sounds a bit sweeter. Again, ignore me putting my thumb up here. That's because, you know, I'm using a different technique. So tuck that thumb behind all the strings this time. Arch those fingers over, make sure you use the fingertips, okay? So here you can either use your third on the top E, yeah, let's just sound like that, that's a normal G, or the pinky, or you can use both. There you go, so there's G. Now we're going to get into F. Now F is a more advanced chord, but I'm going to show you an easy way how to do it. So it looks a little bit like C. So if we go back to our C chord, there's our C chord. All we're going to do is move our second finger over to the G string and our third finger over to the D. And that's pretty much an F. Except this top E, what we want to do, we want to cover it with our first finger. Now you might end up with something like this. Don't worry, okay? And just for the record, I'm plucking from the D string, okay? I'm avoiding the bottom two. It's okay if you hit the A string, the fifth string. You might get the first three notes and then mute because you can't press down on that top E. That's okay. That will improve. Keep on trying to flatten this first finger to cover those two strings, okay? For now, if you're just getting that muted, that's going to be fine, okay? Don't worry too much about the sound, just learn the chord shape as your fingers get stronger. Whether you're a young beginner or an adult, your fingers will develop strength and you'll be able to do it, okay? So now we're on to the seventh chord, but things get really easy now, okay? So we're going to go back to this E chord that we learned in the beginning. But what we want to do now is learn an E minor. So all we have to do to learn an E minor is take our E chord and remove the first finger. And now we have our E minor. So that's a super easy chord. Put it back on. We have an E major, just a normal E. And then take it away. We've got an E minor. And as you can see, that's written as EM. Okay? Major, minor. Think of it as happy and sad. Now, the next chord, the eighth chord, is going to be E7. Now, E7 is kind of halfway between happy and sad. It gets used in blues. It's kind of cool, right? It's really easy to do. Just take that E chord again. This time, you're going to remove the third finger. And there you have E7. So by learning E, it's kind of like 3 for 1, okay? E major, first finger off to E minor, pop it back on, remove the third finger, and you've got E7. So now if we take this E chord, what we're going to do, we're going to move every finger over one string towards the thin string. So we're going to move our first finger over onto that B string, the second string. We're going to move the third finger over one to the G string and the second finger over one to the D. So now we've got no fingers on the bottom two strings. What we want to do is not play the thick one, the bottom E. We want to start by playing on the fifth string, which is A. Okay, and that looks like an E, but because we've moved it over and now the A string is showing, it becomes an A minor. So sometimes people get confused with that, but all you have to look for is, am I touching the E string? If not, my finger's next to the E string, I'm playing an E, and then when you move the fingers over, you can have two strings here with no fingers on, but it's the finger next to the A that tells you it's an A minor chord, okay? So the A string, your finger's next to it here, and you can hear it's sad, okay? E is happy, A minor is sad. So they look very similar, but they're nice and easy. Now the very last chord we're going to do, we're going to go back to this A chord. Okay, and again we're not playing the bottom E, and all we're going to do is remove the middle finger on the A chord, and we've got what we call an A7. Again, a 7 chord is somewhere in between a major and minor, and it can sound really bluesy, really cool. Okay, put it back on, A major, remove the middle finger, A7. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this week's lesson. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Give me the thumbs up. Share it with your friends. Check out some other videos I've got on my channel as well, and you can find some links below to Spotify. I've done a playlist for virtually all the songs I've done. And there's links below to Instagram and Facebook. So if you wanted to send me a question or a message, I'll do my very best to answer, okay? Enjoy, guys, and I'll see you again the same time next week.